Man, it's nothing like just walking in that kitchen. Every single day, my mind was blown. I've never worked so hard in my life. That was great conditioning. For that to be the second restaurant that I ever worked at, that was like really, really great conditioning. I feel like I could walk into any kitchen and be successful.
This episode is brought to you by FultonFishMarket.com, the most trusted name in seafood. FultonFishMarket.com is the e-commerce provider for New York's iconic Fulton Fish Market, the largest seafood market in the Western Hemisphere, trusted by top chefs for over 200 years. Fulton Fish Market provides a range of world-class seafood options. FultonFishMarket.com can help you serve a wide range of customers, whether you serve high-profile individuals or just strive for culinary excellence. They deliver directly to your doorstep in all 48 contiguous states, providing a comprehensive selection of the finest seafood, from wild fish to caviar and shellfish. When it comes to seafood, FultonFishMarket.com is our go-to destination and the name we trust. Let's celebrate those who support us and dive into this episode of the Private Chef podcast with a taste of excellence and freshness. Visit www.fultonfishmarket.com to get 15% off your first order. Use code PrivateChef at checkout. Welcome to the Private Chef podcast, serving the 1%. I'm your host, Hennche. And on our show, we speak to the best chefs, how they honed in on their skills to excel in the industry, and what it takes to work as a private chef for some of the most exclusive clients in the world. Welcome back to the Private Chef podcast. I'm your host, Hannes Hennche. Today we have a truly remarkable guest joining us. He's not just a chef, but a Food Network job champion. Chef Christopher Dodson. Chris is also a chef consultant, a private chef, and an Army veteran. Now, before we dive into our conversation with Chris, let's get to know him a little better. Chris' culinary journey began when he saw a documentary about the legendary Bobby Flay. This ignited his dream of becoming a chef. After retiring from the Army, Chris pursued his culinary ambitions by attending culinary school in El Paso, Texas. He built on the skills his mother had instilled in him, and then he truly thrived at Grand Achatz Alinea, a three-Michelin-starred restaurant known for its innovative gastronomy. Chris' journey hit a high note when he appeared on the TV show Chopped. He emerged as a champion, earning well-deserved recognition. Beyond his culinary achievements, Chris aspires to be a role model for young chefs. It's a pleasure to welcome you to the show, Chris.
Thank you very much, Hannes. That was a great introduction.
Man, you lived it. It's all yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's been quite a ride. Very exciting.
I mean, I kind of already said it, but where did the passion for the culinary world come from? It's like really homemade with your mom. But when you were in the military, then how did you know that what you really wanted to do was cooking?
I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan, so I was being able to go and be introduced to all different kinds of food, different kinds of seafood. So being able to go to the piers and just get fresh seafood, that was really inspiring. So I had always tried to challenge myself in the kitchen, like at home. So being able to be exposed to all these new ingredients was really what really got me going.
Nice.
So I just wanted to take on the food.
Yeah. And I mean, Okinawa or Japan in general, it's just like a paradise for really high class products. And one of the things Japanese culture actually does, they keep the best products in the country rather than shipping them overseas. And there's so many countries who ship the best stuff to Western countries, but Japan is not one of them. They actually keep the best stuff. So when you go to the local markets, you really see world class products.
Right at home. So good. I remember being in the airport and getting handed a piece of Wagyu tongue that they were grilling right there on a little grill right in the airport. It was amazing. And I was like, man, I'd never had Wagyu. This is it. That was my first time having beef tongue.
Nice. You like it? You enjoy beef tongue?
Oh yeah, sure do. Make some lengua tacos. But that was my first exposure to something high end, and Wagyu beef is the best in the world. And I was getting it from right there in Japan.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
So then what was your journey like or the process, you were in the military and you decided you want to go in the kitchen, but you also already had a vision for yourself. You knew that, you wanted to take it to a certain level. You decided to work for Michelin star restaurant. What was the process like of actually moving states and cities and eventually landing a job at Alinea?
So being in Japan, I just kind of felt like I should do something more. I was doing very well in the military, but I was working in an office and I couldn't stand it. And after I saw that documentary, I was like, I could definitely do this. I could take this on as a full career. So I let my commanders know that, hey, I want to get out a couple of months early because I was scheduled to get out of the military about a year later.
Yep.
So they were able to change my date and let me out of the military early. Then I went right to culinary school. The last duty station that I was stationed at before I went to Japan was El Paso, Texas. So I still had some stuff there. I was familiar with it. They had a culinary program that taught French cuisine. So all right, I'll go back to El Paso. I
Yeah.
went there, and it was a great experience. I went there knowing that I wanted to work in the best restaurants. So when I decided I was going to be a chef, I got the approval to get out of the military. I was like, I got to come up with some sort of plan. Like, what's my vision for the chef life? Um, I knew I needed to get to the best restaurants so that I could learn the fastest because people were cooking, since they're 16, 17 years old. So I was already behind the curve because I had started, so late in my career. I think I was about 25 at the time, 25, 26. Yeah, I just hit 10 years of this, like this month.
Yeah.
Um, so I started working for this restaurant. It was called Cafe Central in El Paso. It was James Beard nominated for Best Chef Southwest. Armando Pomales was the executive chef at the time. But this is while I was in culinary school. So I was like, I know I got to go work at a great restaurant. I was able to work with a rep inside of the restaurant. He worked for Cisco. So Cisco set up a test kitchen inside of there. So I would just volunteer all the time to go and do tastings and help out wherever I could. If there was some chicken being broken down, I was volunteering to do everything. I hated polishing silverware. So. But I'm working at these restaurant Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So 3 days a week, I'm going in there. I worked on Salad Station, Garmager, probably for about 2 weeks. And then the guy that worked Saute, he ended up getting vertigo. So that was my opportunity to get on the line. I was eyeballing it like every day I was on that station. I was like, man, I want to be over there because I could see it. It was probably about 5 feet away from me. And
Yeah.
I could see these guys over there getting down. 3 people on the line that had a Saute 2, which was 9 burners. The grill was all the way in the corner. We called it the hell hole. And then in the middle was a flat top and like another 6 burners. And we were cranking it out. I saw a documentary on, it's called Spinning Plates, and it had Alinea on it. So I was like, man, I want to go there. We got to be the man. I got to beat the man. So I got to get to Alinea. I sent them an email, heartfelt email. I'll send them some pictures of the that I was doing. And they offered me the opportunity to come and do a stage. So when I first started working at Cafe Central, they were in specials. They were telling me the specials. They were giving me the ingredients, prepping the station. By the time I sent the email to Alinea, I was coming up with the specials. I was coming up with the sets, and I was prepping the whole station myself. So I felt like I was ready to go. I went to Alinea, so nervous, super excited. I felt like Charlie in the Chocolate Factory. Um, the first time I saw them blow the balloon, I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is crazy." Um, I remember having to peel fava beans, and I was trying to do everything as fast as I could, as clean as I could, because that's what we were talking about in the restaurant. Yeah, you got to be really fast, Chris. You got to be fast. You got to be as fast as when you go there. And they put me through some rigorous training program at Cafe Central before I even went to Alinea. It was like, you're going to represent us well, and I did. So I'm peeling fava beans as fast as I can to the point where I was pulling like my thumbnail like from my skin. I was kind of separated, just trying to get it all done. That was a highlight because that day, at the end of the day, I was tired, like so tired. I'd never worked so hard in the kitchen in my life, but I loved it. And seeing the transition from the prep day to now that everybody breaks down the whole kitchen, everybody's scrubbing like it's like controlled chaos. It's synchronized squeegee. They're squeegeeing. Somebody's squeegeeing. Someone's drying. it was amazing. So seeing that transition into dinner service and then seeing that first balloon, that was it. I knew like I had to be there.
You know,
Um, I
just so you know, I had a moment like that too. I remember clearly the first Michelin star restaurant when I walked through the kitchen and I did like in stars that day, and there was like a flavor profile in the air, and I saw things happening, and I smelled those tomato with the oregano and the thyme um, under the heat to my right, and that was the moment I was like, I have to work here, so I can totally
mhm.
relate to that.
Yeah, I'm sure there's still some smells that still stick out to you right now. Like they had the black truffle explosion, and they would make the stock probably like once a week. So it just so happened I stopped on the day that they were making the truffle stock, which is just trimmings and trimmings upon trimmings of truffle put inside of a pressure cooker. And so when they open that pressure cooker, it is the most amazing smell. Oh man,
So what did they have you
never
do?
gets old.
What did they have you do to earn the job on the Star? I remember every great restaurant in the US, they just like pulled something on me. Like I was in the middle of doing something, and they're like, "Okay, you have 30 minutes. Here's a piece of protein. Go."
Um, they didn't have me cook anything. They just had me
Oh,
workstation. So I work with a few different chefs. So the thing about Alinea, they already have the menu. It's not about necessarily you being able to cook because they're going to teach you everything that you need to know. You need to be able to take a concept, take a task, and be able to replicate it over and over and over at the highest level.
so what are they looking for in the people that are starting?
Um, Someone who is self-starting, motivated, a good attitude, and someone that can follow instructions and just get into the fight.
Yeah,
That's what I look for sure. So my last stint there, I was actually a sous chef. I was there. That's why I came back to Chicago. And I guess we'll get to that later. But I was in charge of training the morning crew, and that's the things that stood out were they self starters? Could you give them a task and they're going to go and crush it? You give them a demonstration, are they going to ask questions and then crush it? There's not a lot of time to do things over.
yeah. I mean,
So
especially
can
if you have a large team. If everybody
mhm.
comes back and asks a bunch of questions, is unsure, you have to redo things, then you have like an entire team of chaos. So you need people
Right.
that understand the tasks, similar like the military, maybe even. You get a
Hmm.
task, if you need clarification, you clarify right then and there, and then you go knock it out of the park.
Exactly. You follow up. Let me see your first five. All right. When you do another 10, let me see those to make sure you're doing it right. And then you can take it from there. And that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Staff meal, that's your opportunity. That's your time to shine. All the commies all had a specific task, or you might have different stations. Fish station, you guys are in charge of the vegetables today. All right, meat station, you're taking care of the meat. Garde manger, you're on salads, and pastries, taking care of pastries, and the sous chefs will hop in and make something else. So that's your time to shine. All right, are you going to perfectly blanch this broccoli? But we also have to keep in mind that we get a lot of culinary students, a lot of people who are coming and doing interns, so they still need to be trained. That's an opportunity for them to show what they got and opportunity for them to actually learn how to cook, how to
Yeah.
properly sear a piece of salmon. But now you're going to sear 80 pieces. This is perfect. Repetition.
Yeah, that's a funny thing. We had a lot of students coming in at Danielle too. They come from CIA and they're like, "Oh, we came from this prestigious culinary school." And then you're like, "Okay, yeah, good, tell, go here. 2 hours of cutting brunoise, and then you can peel fava beans, and then after 5 hours, they're like, "What am I doing here?" And then you do that for 5 months.
Right,
And then,
for sure.
but the interesting thing is they come in with such, but they have never gone through the volume. So it's not that you can actually put them on the
Mhm.
line or anything. You're just like, if you give them one piece of salmon and you give them a couple of things and you give them a lot of time, they can come up with a dish that's edible and nice. But can they
Mhm.
do that 80 times for service?
Mhm. Absolutely. So, what was the difference there? Did you come up with the menu? Was it ever changing?
Well, the menu was really top down. Like I didn't have to do on the creative end. It was actually similar to Alinea. I would say that maybe some of the sous chefs came up with dishes and gave input, but for like chef de partie level and below, the majority was like a top down approach. There were a lot of classic recipes that kept revolving, like
Hmm.
because it was such a prestigious institution already at that point, and that's 10 years ago, so now it's even more established in that sense. I think they're actually more creative now than they were maybe 10 years ago when I came there, where they were doing many things that they're already used to. Two of the sous chefs were a little bit more creative, but uh, everything else is kind of what you mentioned around Alinea. You know, they wanted somebody who understands the basics of cooking, who has a really solid skill set, who knows how to not burn things and know how to turn them around well, but
Hmm.
basically go with what they want them to do and execute well.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Man, it's nothing like just walking in that kitchen. Like my mind blown was every single day. My mind was blown every day. Pushing that. I've never worked so hard in my life. That was great conditioning. For that to be the second restaurant that I ever worked at, that was like really, really great conditioning. I feel like I could walk into any kitchen and be successful.
Yeah. But also, I think one thing to point out here is that you were very intentional. Like you came into the chef world knowing that you wanted to make it on the highest level, which
Hmm.
I think gives you an edge in a way. First of all, you think you came in late, but you came in more intentional, and you came in more knowledgeable about what life could mean for yourself. You were already a little bit more mature, probably, because you've just come out of the military too. So you weren't like trying to party hard on the side or something. You were very dedicated to what you wanted to do, and you were very intentional and very focused, and that's like a superpower. And actually for somebody like a sous chef or a mentor or a head chef, an executive chef who really wants to teach somebody, you're like the perfect vessel to pour into, because
Right.
you're high energy, focused, disciplined. You're not like going left right on all kinds of things and coming late. You're very very focused on what you wanted to achieve, and you put all your energy behind it.
For sure. I mean, it was to the point where I was, as a commis, I was going home and I was practicing the dishes, all the components that I was making. If I saw something over there, oh, well, we're doing a white truffle risotto special, I'm about to go home and make white truffle risotto. And I would do stuff like that and send the pictures to the chefs. And my friends, the other chefs in there, because we called everybody chef. But the other chefs in there, they would be like, Chris, what are you doing? Like, why are you bringing this stuff to work? Like, yo, I want them to see what I can do. Like, I made duck ham, and I brought it to work. And after service, everybody was trying it. They enjoyed it. I made like a preserved carrot puree and brought it to work for them to try. I'm bringing this to Mike Begale and Grant Achatz. I mean, but they respected it
See, don't discount for what you were doing. You're doing something that a mentor loves, because there's somebody who is going well beyond what they are supposed to do, and they're hungry, and you clearly showed interest in growing and growing fast with a lot of energy behind it. And I think I've seen less individuals like you in many of these kitchens, and more of maybe what you just referred to. And I would have probably been more like one of the guys you just talked about. I'm like, hey Chris, what are you doing, man? Aren't we supposed to go to the bar now? And then, like,
right.
didn't we already work 12, 14 hours to get here? Like it's time to chill, but there's a certain level of excellence that you put at the table, and I think this is why they were very comfortable in making you sous chef eventually.
Yeah, I think so too. When I left there, I definitely had a pretty good reputation. I had the opportunity to cook for Grant Achatz himself one time. That was probably one of the scariest moments in my culinary career. So Alinea went to Madrid for a month. We did a collaboration with another Michelin three-star restaurant, Diverso by
Okay.
Davis Munoz, and they built a restaurant inside of a restaurant. So we had to come up with all these concepts. Like we had a dish called jar can jar to highlight the beautiful preservation techniques that they do in Spain, all the pickling and things like that. So we had to come up with a system of how we're going to clean these jars, get the labels off, get new labels on them, and I came up with a system for that. But I was in charge of staff meal. Everything closed in the town that where we're in before service was over. So everybody would get off work and try to go get something to eat, and would be completely hungry because everything's closed. Our minds were blown because of that. So we started to do staff meal and late night staff meal. So I was in charge of making staff meal, and somehow I got tasked with cooking some food for Chef Ackett's. I had some tomato sauce that I had left over. I used to make the black truffle explosion, so I had some pasta dough already rolled. So I just made what I knew when I was at Cafe Central. I had a dish. It was a linguine fra diavolo, and I knew that was something I could make, with my eyes closed. So I made it for him. Loved it. I come running into the dining room with 2 plates of pasta, and Chef he just stops me. He grabs a plate and walks me out the door. I felt so embarrassed because I was just running in the kitchen. I was like, oh shit, I gotta hurry up and get him this pasta. It's already been like 30 minutes. I don't know how long he's gonna wait, but he was super cool about it. That night, we ended up getting restaurants to a 1-star Michelin restaurant. So we were rushing out of the kitchen, and I think he was gonna tell me that he liked it, but he went out to shake my hand, and I just shook his hand real quick and tried to run out of the kitchen. Every So I think I missed that opportunity to get that good feedback from him, but I ended up hearing it from somebody else, and they told me that they were out and they ran into the chef, and he said how good the pasta was. That was probably the highlight of my career. Super scary. And my boy Jared, I asked him to help me, and he just flat out told me no. He's like, Jared, I got to make some food for Chef. I was like, you gonna help me? And he's, no, Battle, you got it.
Might have been a slight test, where they're like setting you up for it.
Yeah, for sure. I ended up getting promoted. I got promoted to chef de partie right after that.
See,
So that
there you
was
go.
really, really cool.
There's one of my friends. He's doing some of Danielle's parties at Danielle's house himself.
Oh wow!
And sometimes he asks me if I want to be part of that, and then sometimes I'm like, I'm not so sure about that. I'm not so
Right.
sure. I'm not so sure if I want to go there. And then next thing you see, he invites some of his friends, and suddenly there's like Jean-Georges and Eric Ripert, and then they're looking into your pen, and you're like, what are you doing here? And then,
Oh man, I could only imagine.
So this
I'd be
summer,
super nervous.
something like that happened. We were out in the Hamptons. I was working for my client, and so one of my Danielle coworkers from 10 years ago, he is the private chef for a family that I used to work for their business partner. So I know the family and I know him. And then they basically brought in Danielle, Eric Ripert, and Jean-Georges to have a catering together.
Wow.
6-course between those 3 legends. They were doing 2 courses each. And it was just like this entire dynamic. And I was like, well, I'm down the street and I don't have to make dinner tonight. I'm coming over. Like, I want to see what's going on there. And it was so cool because the energy was so different than me as a private chef. Now I'm back with my old crew in a sense. There was quite like 5 people from Danielle that I still knew. Chef Danielle himself, JFK, the old executive chef, was there. And then there was Eric Ripert, Jean-Georges with their teams. But then you also, in the eyes of these legends, like we were all doing our thing and jiving, and it was fine. And it's cool because, also the pressure is up because you have to deliver, but at the same time, it's still kind of a catering, which usually is very bland. And then the only friction in the whole night was maybe when Danielle came in and was like, hey, okay, let's do this like this. And he kind of changed what was said already. And everybody's like, okay, why do you have to do that? But it went all well. And it was a great night. Everybody had fun together. And those are those moments when, at the end of the day, when Eric Ripert claps you on your shoulder and says, well done, that's like, when you and your pasta moment.
Yeah, for sure. Like you feel like the man, the cream of the crop there.
So then,
But why?
what were you about to say?
I would say, but while you're in it, you're like a duck.
Yeah.
You're trying to stay cool and calm on top, and you're just going a million miles an hour on the bottom, freaking out inside. Bro, I was really freaking out. I was like, oh my goodness. I tasted it 5,000 times. I was like, the pasta has to be cooked perfectly. I was really like worried about making sure the pasta was cooked perfectly. This is Grand Ackett's. I'm cooking food. It was granite.
So,
But I enjoyed it. That boosted my confidence level like really, really high.
and I think this is the right way to boost confidence. It comes from going through the reps, having the skill, and delivering when it counts.
Hmm.
I think it's probably the only kind of confidence that makes any sense, so to say, because you're confident because you've been there, done it, and you've done
Hmm.
it on the highest level, and you've done it for the man on the highest level.
Hmm. And you did it well.
Yeah. So then,
Man, I don't.
what made you leave Alinea? Like, why did you want to leave there and eventually explore other things?
Well, I was married at the time, and we were having a rough time at that time, and figured that would be the best way to, try to save that marriage. I'm not married to that person anymore, so probably should have stayed there. I think if I had stayed there, I'd definitely be chef de cuisine. Doug, he's the executive chef now. We had a really, really good relationship. I even stars at Alinea over the years, and just to go say hi, because I love that place. It's awesome. It's super inspiring to me. Um, but yeah, I left to try to save a marriage. I ended up working for Home Chef, the meal kit delivery
Yeah.
service, which it's really, really cool. The chefs in there, they were really, really, really good cooks. They took me under their wing. It was a hard transition for me. I felt like I was like the man. You couldn't tell me anything about food. Like, we had to submit dishes, but we were submitting it to the people that worked in there who were not chefs. So everybody had different positions. Like, I don't know, maybe the accountant was there, the food photographer was there, a couple of managers, but people who were not people that cooked food.
So you felt like you were
And
receiving a lot of uneducated feedback?
yes. And it was hard for me to take that feedback. At Alinea, it was like you're gonna work on the dish until you get it to where you want it. Like, no, by any means necessary, we're gonna do it until it's perfect. This is where the vision is. If we can execute it, we can execute it. Some things get scrapped, but you try to execute the vision. It was completely opposite there. It's like, it's not that good. On to the next one. I was like, well, I want the feedback and let me tweak it and try to fix it. And that's not how they played the game. So I had to get educated and really how to play the game, and I got pretty humbled. Yeah, that place humbled me quickly. There was a lot of restraints on, like sodium, certain amount of carbs. The dishes had to cost, $3.25 for a chicken dish, and it had to be like three ingredient items. You get a packet of soy sauce, one pat of butter, a piece of raw chicken, and some broccoli.
Yeah.
Enough rice to make rice. So we had to make dishes that were easy enough for people to go home and cook it, but cool enough that they feel like they're being a chef at home. That job was not very fun. We were in a church. We were in an old church, and it had two kitchen stoves, and we were in there cooking food. I thought that was it was actually fun. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about food styling. We had to take pictures and do step shots. If I ever do a cookbook, there's a certain way that I would want to do it with actual like step shots and show them the
Yeah.
ways to do it. But it was
You will like that. I co-founded a meal kit delivery service in New York, and I went through the
really.
same experience. It was 2014,
Hmm.
and it was wild. Everything that you just said for me rings so home. And like I never really had to do these step-by-step photo shoots, and we went through it. And this whole food photography was such a different animal for me. And initially, we try to preserve the food and keep it edible. And then we learned you just have to
Hmm.
give up on the food, and you have to do
Hmm.
what you have to do in order to get the best picture.
Right.
And those step-by-step things. Yeah, I'll have to send you some of the first version of our step-by-step recipes to the last. It was such a real evolution, you could say. So it was very
Right.
interesting. But as you said, it was very humbling because suddenly I had to take feedback from designers and photographers, and I'm like, okay, guys, like I get it, but it's like not real food-based feedback, and
Hmm.
same constraints. It's food cost. You can like barely spend $4 on a meal, and then you have to do those things.
Hmm.
And then the first time we did a trial with clients, it was too funny because our promise was supposed to be that people can do it quick and easy, in like 10 to 15 minutes. And
Hmm.
that's probably the same as Home Chef. Then I saw people staring at the recipe for 8 minutes before they started cooking. And I'm like, you're supposed to cook that meal in under 15 minutes and you're still reading the recipe.
Yeah, it's crazy. Or you're telling me that I didn't perfectly cook this broccoli. This broccoli is not cooked right, Chris. What? I know that I can cook a piece of broccoli in my sleep. I could tell you how to cook a piece of broccoli.
But this is beautiful here, because so here's another experience that I have in the private world a lot. That's when clients give you feedback on your food over and over again, and eventually you get to a point, because it's the only client you have is the family, and
Mhm.
you're like, do I really don't know how to cook broccoli? Like, you know 6 months in to the broccoli conversation, you're like, I really don't know how to cook broccoli anymore. Did I really lose it?
Right.
And and that's the wild part when it becomes a mental thing. Like, I used to work at a
Mhm.
three-Michelin-star restaurant. My food was good enough for New York Times and the Michelin, but now I'm here totally doubting if I can still do it.
Right. Did I lose something? But along the way, you just kind of learn that food's subjective, right? People like what they like. I ended up working at this private dining club in South Carolina, and I wanted to bring some cool molecular gastronomy, some cool techniques. But at the end of the day, they wanted a filet mignon with mashed potatoes and some asparagus, you know, liver and onions. All right. Well, if we're gonna make it, it's gonna be perfect, and that's just the mentality that I adopted. I'll make you whatever you want, and I'm gonna make it to the best of my ability. All right. You want your broccoli to be a little bit mushy? Well, I'm gonna make it a little bit more mushy for you, but it's gonna be seasoned perfectly. Right.
But even
I had
here,
this.
seasoned perfect could mean many different things for many different people.
Right, for sure.
And especially now that you're cooking private, like, what's your experience, what's the family that you work for like in terms of the food you have to cook? Do you still feel like you're cooking perfect food that you would serve at the linea, or you're having to do adaptations where you're like, I don't know about that, but I'll do it?
No, so this has been pretty seamless, this experience. So this is my first full time, I'm on board. This is my client. Um, and it's been a pretty seamless experience. They are open to whatever that I want to make, and I greatly appreciate that. I was able to order sous vide machine, a vacuum sealer. You know, I'm happy.
Ah,
Maybe I'll get an ice cream maker for Christmas. I
Paco
think
Chess.
that. Yeah, right.
You would be surprised. So the other family I talked about earlier, where the former Danielle guy also works there. He has a Paco
Mhm.
chat at every residence they have.
Oh wow.
So there's families like that out there who is like, just go for it, man. We just want to eat the best, whatever it takes.
Right. So I mean, but how do you plan a dish like that? Where are you gonna put a quenelle of something? Right now, my client was sick, so this week I wanted to give her things that were comforting. Shepherd's pie, leek and potato soup, beef and vegetable soup. So just comforting things. But when will you actually use a Paco Jam?
Well, I think he's doing different purees, different ice creams, and sorbets and stuff in the Paco chat. That is just like, even if you make something simple, like maybe a parsley puree or something, you just get it to a level of granularity where it's nicer in the Paco chat, and that just might be the chef's obsession. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe the family would have been totally fine you using the Vitamix for it, something, or
Hmm.
and then straining it, or but there. I mean,
I
that's,
mean,
yeah.
I'm not knocking it. I would love it. I would be so happy if I get a Paco Jam. I would find something to do with it for sure.
See, Chris. Here's the reality of families in the private world, as I've experienced, there's kind of a spectrum. There's people who are able to afford you maybe as a personal chef occasionally, or that want just to eat healthy, and they have people one time a week, and that actually anybody with like a six-figure salary could do that for their family. But then there is that level of people that actually spend like $1 million of payroll a year on their household. Sorry for the interruption, but we gotta share the news with you. Nothing Fishy from FultonFishMarket.com. They're delivering world-class seafood from New York City's legendary Fulton Fish Market straight to your door. Their fishmongers have helped countless chefs get what they need when they need it for over 200 years. Trusting FultonFishMarket.com means their experts work tirelessly to make your day run smoothly. Let your cooking skills shine and elevate your dishes with amazing seafood from FultonFishMarket.com. Where they have different staff members in different households, they might have drivers, and at that stage, the game changes a little bit, and then
for sure.
there's one small sliver of it. I would say it's people over like maybe $50 million net worth, where the game changes completely, and the only thing that matters to them is that they want the absolute best, and they want exactly what they want. And they are usually willing to give you a lot of different resources, like a parkour chat, like different machines, like a sous vide machines, to get that. But at the same time, they don't want to hear any excuses. They're like,
Right.
we're giving you the resources to do this. If you need maybe occasionally an extra hand because we have guests over, we will also give you that. But we expect the best.
Right.
And then it's up for us as private chefs, like, okay, where on this scale do we want to work, and what kind of family do we want to work with? Do we want somebody who wants white glove service every night? Those families are out there. It's not what I'm looking for as a chef. I like to serve excellent food, but a little bit more maybe casual. Doesn't need to be family style, but homey, healthy. I'm personally more interested in making it functional. Might be the wrong word, but like if you tell me you want to change your health, your vitality, if you're an athlete, I'm more likely to work with you maybe than if you tell me you want to eat like a Danielle or a Linia every night.
Right.
And that's just me personally, and that's part of being self-reflected as a chef. I'm like, okay, who am I and what do I want to do on a daily basis? And then you can go out and interview with families and see like, oh, this family naturally aligns very well with me. And I think this is where a good long-term fit can be made between a family and a candidate. Do you feel like this is something you are having with the current family, where you naturally do what you appreciate to do and they naturally appreciate what you're delivering?
Yep, that's exactly what's going on. I mean, they do have interest in better healthcare, and more healthy eating, but they love food. So I have to understand. You got to kind of take baby steps to introducing them to things that are a little more health conscious.
Yeah. So how do you stay on top of what they want? What's the communication like? And did this come natural for you, coming out of maybe more structured commercial kitchens? Now you're in a private space, communication changes. Is there maybe an assistant or someone in between that helps you navigate the communication?
Well, to even get to this point, to do private dinners, it's been a couple of years. I moved to South Carolina in 2018, 19, and I ran into another chef who was doing private dinners, and he kind of took me under his wing. So I was getting, more introduced to being in people's homes and bringing everything that you need to set up to cook a dinner, and cleaning and leaving. So when I interviewed, I was cleaner than I guess the other chefs, for a little bit more organized and more efficient. So that definitely gave me a leg up. But there is a house manager who, kind of gives me the insight of what my client likes to eat and doesn't like to eat. But we actually sat down and we had a conversation of, kind of made a whole list of all the all the categories. All right, what's your favorite meats? What meats do you try to avoid? What vegetables do you like? So now I have something to play with,
Yeah.
and I could just create from there.
Nice. I think this is really cool, and like especially for a first time match, I think it sounds like a very good match and like a very good experience for both parties, like you as the chef and the family.
For sure. And then there's great conversation. This client's a little bit older, so sometimes we have the conversation about the same thing over and over again. But it's still cool. She's very open to eat whatever I put in front of her, and she loves baseball, so it's a lot of baseball references. The pork belly was a home run. But this last dish was a base hit. It was a little too healthy for me. It's like I'm able to get some real time feedback, learn a little bit about baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a very good experience. But her partner, so there's another challenge that hasn't been presented fully as yet because her partner likes to eat more vegetables, vegetable heavy dishes, but they're very open to eating everything. But they kind of lean to more meals for them throughout the week are vegetable heavy. But they're out of state for I don't know a couple of months, so I'll cross that bridge when I get there.
Yeah.
But by that time, I anticipate my main client being able to eat more of a vegetable forward diet, right? Well, because by that time I'll have weaned her away from pizza and Chinese food.
Or you just have to make multiple dishes.
Exactly.
One of the funny things is usually what happens if I make or I used to make pizza maybe for the kids, and then the dad is like, I want to do everything on scale and I want it weighed out, and you send it to my nutritionist, and then he sees the pizza and he's like, can you make one more? I'm like, what happened to the nutritionist's diet and putting everything on the scale and sending it to the nutritionist?
Right. That's that willpower, right? That's that brain power.
Yeah.
But that's the goal. I want them to want to eat. If I'm gonna make it, I want you to not miss the experience of going out to get it.
Yes.
At least we know what's in it.
I got to a point with one of my clients where and I thought that was quite a compliment, where they felt like their house was the better option compared to some of the restaurants in the area. And I was like, we're in the tri-state area in New York. That's a bit of a statement. They're like, at least here we know we will appreciate it. And I'm like, okay.
For sure. Absolutely. That I don't know how it gets any better than that. As chefs, we kind of looking for that instant gratification, and that one is, right
So
at the top of the list.
how did you like the shift from working, for example, at a linear where you don't really have that client recognition to now being in a private space where you have it? How does that feel to you?
It feels great. I really went to culinary school so I could be better to cook at home. I like to cook at home. Cooking has always been my hobby, so I wanted to, really learn to be technical. But that's really how I share my love and spread my love is through food. So being able to do it directly, it's even better. I mean, Alinea was awesome because we go out into the gallery and we do the dessert on the table, and we get a round of applause. So you still get that immediate appreciation. You can see the direct impact to the customer, but this is a little bit more meaningful because you're developing relationships. That is through food. So being able to not only share my food, but develop relationships, I like it a lot.
Yeah. I think that is one of the most rewarding parts of being a private chef, is that you finally get that interaction with clients, and there's like maybe a more human aspect that I definitely felt like I was lacking when I was, for example, at Danielle.
Oh man, it's funny that you say that because when we're working in these kitchens that are such a high level, you kind of lose that connection to people, right? It's all about your connection to food. You're focused, laser focused on your task for the day. You're not developing the relationship. You're not talking to the guy next to you until you have staff meal or you go to the bar. And if you don't go to the bar, you don't have that connection or relationship. And then I don't know. For me, I had a hard time developing relationships because when I'm at work, I'm like super focused. Like we're gonna make this, we're gonna make it amazing, and not everybody had the same drive So it came off abrasive sometimes, and I'm very direct. So sometimes not everybody understood where I was coming from, or I could be a little bit aggressive. I don't want to say it's people, but I had to learn to develop to be more of a people person again.
I can relate to that. There were some people that were working with me at Danielle, and I was like a pretty no BS guy. Like, I don't talk a whole lot,
Hmm.
and I don't entertain if other people talk instead of getting the job done.
Right.
So there was this one guy, and I was like turning to him. I don't remember the exact line I gave him, but I was like, Richard, why don't you just like shut up and get your job done so other people don't have to help you? It's like, and he took such big offense to it. I'm like, it's just what needs to get done right now. Like, if you keep talking, you're not gonna be done when 5:15 comes around and we're like 15 minutes to service where we're supposed to be done so chef can check everything.
Hmm.
So every day you will talk a lot and you won't be ready. So how about today you start by shutting up and getting the job done?
Right. Please.
And he felt so offended, man.
I mean, but you can't. You can't do both.
I,
You're splitting that focus.
I think that the people that actually did a really good job, they didn't do it. There were some people who were really good, they were on top of the stuff. What they would do the job, and then they would have a little bit of extra time where they would talk. But
Hmm.
I rarely saw individuals that would just talk and get an amazing job done.
Hmm.
Like, there were some chefs, they'll do the job, they have some spare time, they communicate, do some banter, whatever it is.
Yeah, and I also found difficulty like transitioning to other restaurants because some people it's just a job. Like, yo, why is this guy checking my mise en place 14 times? I don't I don't even care how I cut this carrot. They're just gonna make this, pot of
Yeah.
whatever.
You
And
know,
it was a tough transition.
one of the ladies I used to work with at Danielle, she wanted to earn a little bit more money because obviously we're on the lowest end of the pay scale in New York working there. She went to a union restaurant afterwards because she probably got
Mm-hmm.
twice the hourly wage there. But she couldn't stand it. She hated it. She was like, these people couldn't care less. Like, if a ticket comes in and it's 2 minutes to their time, they'll just put the apron on the thing. I'm like, I'm sorry, I cannot finish this ticket within my working hours, and all kinds of things like that. And you just want to walk out the door. Like, if you have to
Mm-hmm.
work with C players who think they are B plus players and don't even want to get the job done, the attitude alone will kill you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So just a people challenge. Another just made me think of another challenge that I did. So Alinea was all about like a la minute cooking. So I worked for a hotel. I worked for the Virgin Hotel, and I was in charge of banquets. And I had a hard time getting that timing down because in my mind, you're cooking food, it needs to be served hot and ready. They're used to just putting food in the hot box. I'm like, yo, how do you keep this food amazing and you're putting it in a hot box?
Well,
I
you
mean, I
don't.
understand it now. Yeah. I understand it now. You just have to serve the food, right? Make it as good as you can. You just have to serve it. But I just couldn't. That was really a challenge. Like, why are we not trying to make this at the very last minute?
There was a very brief moment where I did Formula One VIP area catering because I was waiting for my paperwork to come through in the United States. So I was in Europe,
Oh wow,
and in between, I was like, okay, what can I do? I was like, I have to pick up some gigs here. So I was flying around with the Formula One races.
that's so
And
cool.
a part of the job was to basically cook for like the paddock club live where you're inside and you can actually see the race to your left. You can look on the race. It's into the pit. But at the same time, I had to arrange like a buffet.
Hmm.
And at some point, the chef came. Was like, where did you learn how to cook? Because he was used to a bunch of guys standing there flipping the stuff and and letting the thing die down. As long as there's food, that's it. But I kind of like changed the quantities. I made everything smaller batches, fresh, fresh, fresh,
Hmm.
fresh, fresh, fresh. It was a lot more work for me, but I just took so much pride in doing it that the guy was like, "This is amazing, man! Like, this looks great," you know. And it's just from how do you approach? It's attitude more than anything. If the
For
other
sure.
guys wanted to, they probably had the skill to do it, but they didn't have the attitude. And I think that's
Hmm.
an important part is there's amazing A players, the absolute A players. I think they have that attitude regardless of where they go.
Hmm.
Whether you put them on something simple for somebody simple, or whether you put them in a linear or somewhere else. And then there's a different kind of group who is like, will do it as long as they're in a good mood. I would say I'm in that group. Like, there's a there is a point where if you give me enough BS, I'll not take it anymore, and I will also not care too much anymore. That's
Right.
and that's usually it translates into what I'm delivering. As much as I would like to say I'm a super professional and I will always cook this best food, the reality is how we feel within ourselves translates into what ends up on the plate too.
Absolutely.
I think more so as an individual chef that doesn't have a team. I think a team like in a restaurant, again, Danielle or Alinea, can carry an amazing plate further than a single chef who is maybe already feels deeply offended by a particular client, for example. Like,
Hmm.
I usually feel like it's the end of a work relationship for me when I get to that point, and then I know it's maybe time to move on and find a different client for myself.
Absolutely. I could see that when you no longer have you're no longer putting the love into it. It's
Yes.
time to
No.
go.
Yeah.
So how did you go about finding, you were your first client for 5 years. How did you go into your next client and stay in that, same realm?
Well, that was word of mouth. So, friend of mine, um, he somebody in his network asked him if he knew somebody, and it was just a pretty good natural match between my skill set and what they were looking for. And it was interesting. They didn't even have me trial. They just saw my food, they saw the resume, and also once you, like, let's say you have a linear on your resume, and let's say you're staying with that family for maybe 3 to 5 years. Both of
Hmm.
those things together means there is a very low likelihood that you will not turn out to be a good or great candidate. There's a
Right.
chance that maybe on a personal level, there's not a good fit. And they interviewed me for that over Zoom.
Hmm.
But at least people are kind of, they know that you will know how to cook. Like, you've been somebody that you've been at a linear and you've had 3 to 5 years in a household somewhere else, which means there's consistency, track record. There's also, must have been some level of trust between the family and you if you are at somebody's house for that long. Both of
Hmm.
those components together just put you into the 1% of applicants in most positions.
Oh, wow.
Like, for you, if you stay with this one family for a couple of years, you're golden in this industry because you already have an amazing track record with amazing attitude, and now you pair it with longevity in a position. You can take that and you can go to any agency, and they will be happy to take you and put you in front of new clients.
Nice. So how do you find the agencies? It's like, how do you find the people that believe in you? I had a difficult time in the restaurant industry because I didn't get that mentorship. I was always looking for a mentor. I'm not sure if I need it or not. I'm not sure where it would have taken me as far as this path is concerned. But finding someone's going to plug you in the right spots and can see what you do and put you where you can excel. That's not something I've been privy to.
I mean, you have to build genuine relationships with people. One, I feel like, so there's different agencies that have different approaches. There are some agencies who take chefs like noodles, throw them on the wall and see who sticks. That's one way to
Right.
fill jobs. And I've worked with some of those in the early stage. When I was desperate for opportunity, I would work with any agent because I
Hmm.
wanted a job, and I had to figure out how to get there. But then I realized there's agents that care more, that actually remember who you are, and kind of have an idea what a perfect position would be like for you based on your experience and your personality and where you want to live. And there's so many different components to making this match. And so there is really no shortage of agencies in the United States or around the world. The question is, who gives you the time of the day? And then again, introduction will get you just a lot more of their attention than anything. Like, see, if I go to an agent that has worked with me and has a relationship, and I'm like, hey, Chris is somebody who is really solid. He has great experience. He has longevity, but for this or this reason, in this current position, he doesn't feel fulfilled, or maybe it's a little bit one-dimensionally. He would like to look for something else. Would you give him 15 minutes of your time? I'm pretty sure they'll take the call.
Right, for sure. Makes sense. All about those relationships. Community. I think that's what we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, it's also I think in order to have opportunity, you need to make yourself known, and by that you don't necessarily need a public brand. It helps to have a more outside going brand, because then you also get inbound job offers. Like
Hmm.
I'm at a point where occasionally, families will reach out to me based on things that they found of me online, or maybe another chef that connected with me. So it's a little bit more inbound. It's not just me going outbound trying to find things. And I think
Right,
that
sure.
helps. So what you want to do is you want to just network with other chefs and network with people in the industry, because there's also kind of gatekeepers in this industry. So the agents could be a gatekeeper because you don't have the contacts of the families themselves.
Hmm.
Then there's the personal assistants who oftentimes pick up the initial communication. So they're also a gatekeeper between you and the family, or
Right.
estate managers. So there's those different groups of people who are kind of chief of staff, who could be the gatekeepers for you. And then you want to maybe also befriend some of them, because it just helps to build genuine relationship with people, and they give you
Hmm.
more insights, and you also understand the pay scale, because the pay scale in the United States for private chef is really big. Like I've helped people from like what I consider really underpaid in New York to get to proper New York City pay, and then there's just such a big range in pay. So you want to understand your market value in that regard too.
Right. And, that's always the biggest question. How do you determine what you should be paid? Right? What's your hour worth?
See, I'll give you a simple one. Every time I decided that I want to have a different income, I was able to find an opportunity where I could add as much value with the same skill set or the willingness to learn, and somebody was
Hmm.
happy to pay me the money that I was looking for. See, initially I worked at Danielle and I made as close to minimum wage as it gets, maybe, I don't know, a couple quarters over minimum wage. But I was
Hmm.
already pretty good chef. Like, I had pretty solid skill set. So then I was able to understand, if I apply the same skill set, maybe on a single night for a client at their house, and it's their birthday party, they're almost willing to give me maybe 2 weeks of my salary in a single night. And okay, maybe it takes me 2 days to prepare, but compared to
Hmm.
working 2 weeks at Danielle, that was like an interesting experience. Then I realized, if
Right.
I take that same skill set and I go maybe to aspiring restaurants who are maybe on the edge of going to fine dining, trying to get their first Michelin star, but you coming from 3 Michelin stars, you can teach them things. So you could have like consultancy like you did yourself. So you just
Hmm.
have to see, okay, where with my current skill set can I add enough or more value for somebody who's willing to give me more money for my time? And
Right.
then the easiest way to do that on a higher paid level is to work for people that value their own time enormously, which is usually wealthy people, and that also value their own experience enormously, at the same time have the highest disposable income. And this is where you end up working for like the 1% of the 1% of the 1%, because you
Right.
want to work for somebody who values their own time so much that they don't want to leave the comfort of their home to have world-class food. You're skilled enough to serve world-class food within their home, as long as they give you certain resources. At the same time, you are actually able to create an outstanding experience for them and their guests in their home again, like restaurant quality food, but not just on an average restaurant, but on like a Michelin star restaurant. And this
Right.
combination, you're suddenly in such a rare spot as a chef. And also, for example, you yourself, as Chris, as who you are, you have an amazing attitude, the personality that you have. So now you're really in like this very tiny, tiny group of chefs. And all you need to find is a single client that values what you put on the table, appreciates your personality, and then your salary can be on a very big spectrum.
Right.
And then it's really just up for you to feel it out, negotiate, and see how can I add so much value to them that they are comfortable carving out the biggest possible paycheck for me. But you want to do it in a way where they're happy. So it's a sustainable relationship.
For sure. Makes a ton of sense.
And every chef that I think has excelled and has longevity always said, I like to use the word delight. You want to surprise, you want to delight, there needs to be that ongoing sense for them that they are getting their money's worth. And sometimes that can be tricky because not every client maybe is like your client right now where they give you free hand. Sometimes they limit you down to very few ingredients, and then they also tell you to only use certain techniques, and suddenly you find yourself in that very repetitive spectrum of dishes.
Right.
And that can be a little bit of a pickle because then you're trying to play it safe because you don't want negative feedback. You want them to be happy, but then you keep cooking the same stuff. And then, so it's a little bit of a dance at that point.
Very interesting. I think I lucked out, like really, really lucked out with my client.
I think it
The
sounds like a very good organic fit. And that's why I was also so happy and interested to have this conversation with you because, you're just like in the midst of feeling into that relationship, and I think it's so cool to see you kind of getting into your first private chef position and it's kind of sharing with us what that means for you.
I mean, it's exciting. This job is actually like the highest paid job that I had, like full transparency. Um, I have the freedom. I'm off on Saturday and Sunday. I haven't been off on Saturday and Sunday, and I can't remember how long, right? So I get time to make plans. I have time to think.
Yeah,
When working at Alinea, you're thinking about when you got to go back to work. All right, I need to organize this. Did I order this? Did this get ordered? You're thinking about the next 5 steps that you got to do. You're not able to be present, and this forced me the opportunity just to be present. I can go to the gym. All right, took up another hobby, man. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity. How do you not get bored? How do you continue to challenge yourself as a chef? I've thought of a couple of ways.
that might be one of the challenges is like, let's say you have a client that's not as open,
Hmm.
uh, then this might be something that happens to you where you're like, okay, I'm kind of pulling the same thing here on a regular basis, and it gets boring. But then one of the things I found as a private chef, even let's say the culinary aspect doesn't get as diverse, usually what happened in the positions that I was in is that the overall thing got more diverse. Maybe the client added another one or two residences. Maybe I had to travel a lot. Maybe I had to like there was a point in my career where I was not used to be on private jets and prepare food there. So then you have to learn how to do that and use the galley and all of
Right.
those things. And then you find yourself on a yacht, and then so there's those different components that don't really allow boredom, where you just have to be on top of your game in a different way.
Right.
And then usually what I like to do, like if somebody is interested in health, I can get very obsessed around that part and kind of like, okay, what are we looking for here nutritionally? And
Hmm.
I like that part. I'm like, okay, bringing new ideas. I'm like, hey, here's some research. This is what I'm looking at right now, or this is maybe the kind of movement pattern we can integrate. I'm not a trainer in that sense, but I'm
Hmm.
personally interested enough that I can bring it to the table. I'm like, hey, should we speak maybe to a trainer? Should we incorporate this? Maybe those kind of things is always very interesting to me. And then again, private chef positions are super diverse. Like you can
Hmm.
find families that want you to only cook and only cook you like Michelin star level cuisine. And then you will find families where you're the private chef and then they hear that you know how to play the piano and they want you to maybe teach somebody how to play the piano in the household. And then maybe, I don't know, something doesn't work in the household and they have you look after it. So or maybe the driver is sick for a week and you're driving for a week. So it
Right.
gets really borderline and it has a wide spectrum, which is why having the right fit with the client is really important.
So you can become really eh, engulfed in the family, like
Yeah, I mean,
to taking care of any position.
you could become an estate manager at some point. Like I've seen, I've been interviewed for a job with Estee Lauder, that big cosmetic brand.
Hmm.
And it was really interesting. I didn't sign an NDA in the process yet. That's why I can talk about it. But they were interviewing me and a couple of rather like experienced chefs, and all of us were a little bit put off by the interview because they were basically looking for a housekeeper that knows how to cook a little bit. Because they used to have a housekeeper who started cooking for the principal. But then they
Right.
told all the chefs, I'm like, yeah, and then you have to clean the bathroom and do the laundry. And I'm like, you're not looking for a chef. Like, you're looking for a housekeeper that knows how to cook.
Hmm.
And so
Wow.
you have to go through that in your interview process and understand, what am I getting myself into here? Do they really just want me to cook? Or do they want me to manage their construction site on the side?
Right.
I'm not kidding with you. I've had jobs where I managed smaller construction teams, not like a full renovation, but there was like, yeah, this has to be done, this has to be placed here. There's a new power line coming in here, and there those kind of things. It really depends on the family, and that's just part of the experience. And it's in private service. I always feel like it's a little bit of a dance. There's
Hmm.
situations where you can give a little bit without taking away from your primary tasks you weren't hired before. But then it's
Right.
also a fine line before you're suddenly like doing all kinds of things and it takes away from the culinary experience.
And do you get an extra bonus for that? Becoming a construction manager?
It depends, but again, the beauty is, see, you're not in a union job here. That's kind of the downside and the upside at the same time. I always say everything is up for negotiation, and
Hmm.
which is why I think it's good to have more opportunity, and which means build relationships. Because if you know you can get another job soon, and it's also a reason why I like to be financially independent and kind of be on top of my money, because as long as I know that I don't need the money from them to survive, I have
Hmm.
options.
Right.
So putting yourself financially in a situation where you can sit out a season and be like, yeah, it's fine. I'll wait for the perfect family. Not in the sense that they need to descend from heaven, but in the sense that, okay, the people that have been interviewing me right now, they're not aligning with me. I know this might not be a good long term fit. And
Hmm.
you take your time. And because you're not struggling for the money, and actually, this is something I learned from Arnold Schwarzenegger. So he originally didn't make his money in movies. He became a millionaire in the United States in real estate because
Hmm.
he didn't want to be an actor that had to go to any audition and take any crappy role. He
Right.
wanted to be in charge, and he was like, I will go to the auditions and the roles that I want, and if they want me, I will work with them, and otherwise I'm
Hmm.
fine because anyway, I got my real estate income. And I think
Hmm.
chefs are not great with money usually. Like many chefs, it starts with we come from low pay and then we come from low financial understanding. There's very few
Hmm.
chefs I met that early on started, okay, put some money here, compound it over the years. Here are some tax efficiencies. So I think having that in the back of your head that you have opportunity and that you have time to find the family that you like to work with. I think
Right.
that's a really good thing.
I think you make a good, valid point about the financial stability, even the financial literacy, right? I'm so grateful for having the opportunity to have these weekends so that way I can do more dinners outside of these dinners that I'm doing now so I can put myself in a better financial space.
Yeah. And
But
it also allows you to use those weekends and educate themselves like, okay, now I'm earning more money. What does that mean? Where do I put that money? Like, do I
right.
just put it into savings? Do I start investing? And wait, I'm
Hmm.
paying like I don't know, 30-40% in taxes, depending on which state you live in, how can I learn about tax efficiency in such a way that maybe I don't own this big chunk to the IRS?
Right.
There's all those components because actually your biggest single expense in the year is taxes.
Hmm.
We just don't look at it like that because we look at what arrives in our account. But our client is willing to pay a lot more than what gets into our account. And the different, we give it to the government. So then the
Right.
question is there a legal way to mitigate the difference, to reduce it? Because then you don't have to work more, but you get more money from what somebody is already willing to pay towards you.
Hmm. Yeah, we definitely got to have some more conversation offline about that.
Also happy to have those online. Well,
Definitely.
Chris, this has been really interesting. Where can people connect with you if they want to find out more about you? I see your Instagram. You're traveling around the world, Crete and other places. Maybe
No,
people
yeah.
would like to see that.
Man, I'm on Instagram, Cook with Chris. Everything is regular spelling, Cook with Chris. Also have a website is chefchrisd.com. That's it. Or you can reach me at Chris at chefchrisd.com.
I like the way you made
And
your
yeah,
website because it gives good context. At the same time, you're giving people to reach out to you. You know that you have the experience. I think in general, that's a really good step for people who are, as yourself at one point, on the edge of going private. Just it's like a good business card that you can send people towards and kind of gain
right.
traction.
And I think the shows are definitely helping as well. I competed on Beat Bobby Flay. So I'm not sure when the episode is going to air. It should be this year. And then I recently competed on another show called 24 in 24, which is a brand new show. 24 chefs competing for 24 hours to be the last chef standing. So
Wait,
that was a really,
you actually had to be awake for 24 hours to do that?
yeah, we were actually awake longer than that, longer than 24 hours. But yeah, you see a giant clock and it's 24-hour countdown.
So, and you're continuously cooking?
Continuously cooking, challenge after challenge. There's different challenges. I can't give too much information because it hasn't been broadcasted yet, or
Eh,
even but it was really cool. 24 hours of cooking,
that sounds
different
wild.
challenges, bunch of rock star chefs to your left and right. It was an amazing experience.
That's
So I
interesting.
think once the shows air, I'll get a little more traction. But I plan on being with this family for a couple of years. Really get a good understanding of what it's like to be a private chef in someone's home.
See, if you can get to the 3 to 5 year mark, it will solidify your resume like nothing else.
Yeah, so three to 5 years. That's the golden spot right there.
Yeah, that's and then obviously you need to leave on a good note and have a good reference. But if you get that done after your experience with Alinea, after everything, then you're very, very solid. And any agency, any family office will take you as a really solid candidate. And then it might be just up to personal preference. It might be like, okay,
Right.
you're cooking like this, we prefer to eat like this, or
Hmm.
maybe your personality doesn't fit the household. There are certain things we cannot take personal in this business because it's just
Right.
preference. There, yeah.
Did you build like a culinary portfolio? Did you take a lot of pictures of your food?
Oh yeah, that's another one. Definitely, you need tons of pictures, and that's where it helps. Like the experience you have with Home Chef. Also, I think the new iPhones are doing an amazing job. If you have natural light, and if you have some spare time at work, definitely try to get a diverse range of pictures in with natural light, so that you have a good portfolio that you can show with people.
Okay.
And then also one of the things I kind of figured for myself, in your portfolio, show them what you really love to cook. Don't just, especially later in your career, get to a point where you're so comfortable in your skin, from your resume to kind of the cover letter to the photos you show, that expresses who you want to be every minute of the day the most, because you will attract the family that will appreciate that. And instead of maybe cooking what you know how to cook, but you don't appreciate it to the same degree, you might be able to attract the family that loves exactly who you are and what you love to do.
Right.
But in order to get there, you kind of need to own that for yourself and be like, okay, this is where I'm comfortable in my skin. These are the dishes that I would love to cook. This is the style of cooking that I would love to do every single day. And you put that out there and you put it forth, and then you stick it out till you find somebody who appreciates it. And then anyway, you can cook everything else that you want to cook. They asked for, that's a given because you know how to do it.
Right, for
But
sure.
ideally, you start from that point.
Makes sense. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Anytime, Chris. And thank you so much for being on, taking so much time. I mean, this has probably been one of the longer conversation here. So yeah, thank you so much for.
No, thank you for having me, Hannes. It was a pleasure chatting with you. Definitely got to do it again sometime.
Yeah, we will make a round 2 when you're in the process of getting the new job, and then we're doing live.
Okay, for sure. By then you'll have all your, your new videographer dialed in.
That would be cool, man. We'd like to thank our sponsor, FultonFishMarket.com, the best seafood in the nation, trusted by the best chefs in the world. Aside from offering premium seafood, they also make life easier for you by delivering all these outstanding products right to your doorstep. Visit the official website www.fultonfishmarket.com and explore the incredible selection of seafood, and let your clients experience quality that has captivated palates for generations. Use code PRIVATECHEF at checkout to get 15% of your first order. When it comes to seafood, FultonFishMarket.com is the name we trust. Thank you for joining us at the Private Chef podcast. If you know any highly skilled chefs that want to take their life to the next level, make sure to share this podcast with them. And if you enjoyed this episode, click subscribe and check out our upcoming episodes. Thank you for listening.